Please be seated. Forgive me if I sit. Good evening, members of the Council and members of the public, and welcome to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on our website. Please can members also remember to speak directly into their microphones and to switch them off before speaking and off once they have finished. I'll say that again, switch them on before speaking and off once they've finished. I've also been asked at meetings of the Council to make a standard evacuation announcement. Please note that, in the case of an emergency, a bell will ring continuously. If this occurs, please leave the Council chamber at once, taking your personal belongings with you. Follow the green fire exit signs to leave the Civic Centre onto Duke Street via the stairs, which are located near to the end of the corridor adjoining this chamber. Lifts should not be used. Please gather by the War Memorial immediately outside the Civic Centre, and if and when it is safe to return to the building, an announcement will be made. You should not return to the building until told that it is safe to do so. Anyone attending this meeting is entitled to film it, but I should point out that only the councillors, officers and anyone sitting around these tables may be filmed. Members of the public should not be filmed, so please ensure that your cameras are pointed only in this direction. Please would you silence or switch off your mobile phones whilst the meeting is taking place. I'd also like to remind members that there are 3 styles of voting that can be used tonight. These are a show of hands, voting by assent, or a recorded vote, which would have to be requested by 10 members. I would also like to remind members that those moving an item of business have 10 minutes and a right of reply for 5 minutes. Those seconding items have 5 minutes and can reserve their right to speak to before the mover of the motion has the final say. All other councillors can only speak once for 5 minutes per item. This must be before I invite the seconder or mover to speak at the end. May I now ask you to stand for my chaplain to read prayers.
Let's bow our heads for a moment. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of the city of Chelmsford, a place that we all love and want the very best for. And I thank you for every councillor in this room tonight and those who could not make it for whatever reason. For those who are new to their role and for those who have done this for many years. Taking on this role as a public servant is a bit like stepping out of the relative safety of the boat and hoping, praying that we can walk on water. But as Jesus called Peter to walk on the surface of Lake Galilee, you have called us here tonight. We pray for all the wisdom, courage and integrity that we will need. May your speech in this place be gracious, truthful and gentle, and may our respect for one another match our passion to serve those whom we represent. And may we follow the example of Jesus, who came to serve, to love and to bless. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies for absence for this meeting from councillors Bugby, Canning, Dudley, Foster, Hall, Jeeps, Rajesh, Robinson and Tron. Are there any others to report?
Councillor John.
All okay? Mayor's announcements. Firstly, I would like to congratulate the 3 MPs on their election for the constituency in our local area. The Right Honourable Mari Goldman, well done, Kemi Badenoch and John Whittingdale. My early months in the role of Mayor of Chelmsford has been a pleasure. Myself and the Deputy Mayor have attended over 60 engagements, and it was a particular honour to be joined by many of you for my civic service in June. We are excited to undertake participate in and promote more fundraising events for the Mayor's charity, Farley Hospice, a very worthy cause. Declarations of interest. Members will be aware of the need to declare any interest they have in the business at this meeting, either now or when we come to that item. Does anyone wish to declare any interest at this point? Thank you. The minutes of the meeting of the 20th of March and the 15th of May 2024 have been distributed. Please note that there is an addendum to the published meetings for the March meeting. That should read is an addendum to the published minutes for the March meeting, which are included in this version to approve. Are you happy to accept them as a correct record? In that case, the minutes are approved. Public questions. Item number 5 is public questions. Any member of the public may ask a question on which the council has powers or duties or which affects the city. Questions must not exceed 2 minutes, and the total period allowed for question time under the council rules of procedure is 30 minutes. There is not an opportunity for supplementary questions. We have received one public question from tonight's meeting, and I invite Mr. C to ask his question at this point. Sir.
Hello, Council. This statement is a 2-minute summary of my longer online submission. Recently, I was surprised to discover that in July 2019, Chelmsford Council had declared a climate emergency. Even the IPCC has to this day not declared a climate emergency. I wondered, what did Chelmsford Council know that the IPCC did not know? So I decided to investigate. My inquiries revealed that no evidence that climate change is caused by man's activities were presented nor discussed in July 2019. Instead, Councillor Moore submitted a motion proposing a climate emergency be declared, and the Council unanimously agreed to this proposal with little discussion. No cost-benefit analysis was ever conducted that assessed the risks of climate change to the people of Chelmsford against the costs proposed by the Council to mitigate those risks. You might think that declaring a climate emergency was not contentious. You might think that the science has settled on climate change, but it's not settled. Over 1,900 scientists have signed the World Climate Declaration to the effect that there are considerable doubts about anthropogenic climate change. Many factors affect Earth's climate, such as the amount of water vapour, Earth's proximity to the Sun during orbit, the amount of radiative energy emitted by the Sun, and others. The science has never settled. The fact that the Earth has not warmed during this century by as much as predicted by the IPCC is evidence that the factors behind climate change are not fully understood. As such, I feel that the Climate Emergency Declaration should be reviewed by this Council. Specifically, I suggest that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee tracks down the evidence for anthropogenic climate change and performs a cost-benefit analysis based on facts, not on propaganda. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I ask Councillor Moore to reply, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. C, for your question and also for attending in person this evening to read your statement. So I would like to outline what the IPCC stands for. What is its function? The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the United Nations body for assessing the science related to climate change. It was established in 1988 to provide political leaders with periodic scientific assessments concerning climate change, but also its implications and risks, as well as to put forward adaptation and mitigation strategies. Thousands of people from across the world contribute to the work of the IPCC for the assessment reports. Experts volunteer their time as IPCC authors to assess the thousands of scientific papers published each year, to provide a comprehensive summary of what is known about the drivers of climate change, its impacts and its future risks, and how adaptation and mitigation can reduce those risks. The IPCC does not conduct its own research. IPCC reports are neutral, policy relevant, but not policy prescriptive, and it is not within the IPCC's remit either to declare a climate emergency or otherwise recommend not to. The observed impacts from the latest summary from the IPCC include that human-induced climate change, including more frequent and intense extreme events, has caused widespread adverse impacts and related losses and damage to nature and people that go beyond natural climate variability. Some development and adaptation efforts have reduced vulnerability, but the rise in weather and climate extremes has led to some irreversible impacts as nature and human systems are pushed beyond their ability to adapt. We talk about the near term being 2021 to 2040. In the near term, global warming reaching 1.5 degrees Celsius would cause unavoidable increases in multiple climate hazards and present multiple risks to ecosystems and humans. The level of risk will depend on the actions we take now. Near-term actions that limit global warming to close to 1.5 degrees Celsius would substantially reduce projected losses and damages related to climate change in human systems and ecosystems. Suffice to say, I trust the science. We are not aware of any correspondence from government, Mr. Seeds, that encourage climate emergencies to be declared, and no government funding was received by the Council to encourage us to declare a climate and ecological emergency. Regarding the decision to declare a climate emergency, this was not based on information received from central government, as your statement implies. The proposal to declare a climate and ecological emergency 5 years ago yesterday originated locally and came about through a Liberal Democrat motion to Council in this chamber on the 16th of July 2019. There was a full debate and the motion received unanimous cross-party support. The motion to Council and the debate that followed was democracy in action. Moving on, a comprehensive action plan covering all areas of this Council's operations was then agreed at Cabinet in January 2020. This is published online and reviewed every year. More information and the resolution is also published on the Council's website, and in my written reply to you, sir, I will embed all of the links that I'm mentioning today. The Greenhouse Gas Report is published on the Love Your Chelmsford website, and our 2022-23 version of that report will shortly be replaced by the 23 to 24 report. The report is also due to come to Cabinet later this year. Our Chelmsford, our plan, outlines the Council's strategic priorities and includes key actions to lower energy consumption, reduce waste, carbon and greenhouse gas emissions, and improve air quality, to create a more sustainable approach to growth, development and everyday living, to protect, expand and improve the quality and accessibility of green spaces, improving habitat value and increasing biodiversity, to improve the environmental quality, attractiveness, safety, leisure and recreational potential of our public spaces, green areas, rivers and waterways. Also to protect and enhance wildlife, habitats and landscapes, and to connect people with our built and natural environments. We are also pledging to manage the services we provide in a sustainable way, to help reduce energy consumption and waste, and to preserve natural resources. Once again, the full plan can be found online. Progress on the Climate and Ecological Emergency Action Plan that was agreed at Cabinet on the 28th of January 2020 has previously been reviewed by Overview and Scrutiny Committee. That was on the 1st of February 2021 and the 26th of September 2022. Those strategic actions have now been fully incorporated into our Chelmsford Our Plan, so progress will be reviewed in that context, and given the recent refresh of our Chelmsford Our Plan, a report is likely to come to Overview and Scrutiny Committee early in 2025. Even if you choose to deny the reality of human-induced climate change, we are, through our actions, creating a greener and a cleaner Chelmsford, fit for the generations to come. And I am proud that this Liberal Democrat administration continues to lead by example. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Cabinet question time. Agenda item 6 is Cabinet question time. At the time of the deadline of noon on Monday, 2 questions had been submitted by Cabinet members. There is a right of reply to ask a supplementary question or comment, which, if exercised, also applies to the Cabinet member. First is from Councillor Massey. I'm going to ask Councillor Ely to respond to it. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the December meeting of this Council, a resolution was passed that included a commitment by this Council to not allow the sale of vaping products in any Chelmsford City Council-run premises. May I ask whether this definition includes High Chelmer and Cornhill, which are currently host to 3 shops selling vapes and drug paraphernalia?
Councillor Ely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Massey, for your question. As you state in your question, there was a resolution brought before full council and agreed in December 2023. At that time, a similar question was raised and answered by my fellow Cabinet member, Councillor Moore, who at the time was Cabinet member for a greener and safer Chelmsford. As Cabinet member for a safer Chelmsford, I am happy to reiterate as follows. The premises referred to in High Chelmer Shopping Centre and on Cornhill are not included in the definition of City Council-run premises, as they are on a long lease and operated by a third party, the terms of which do not allow the Council to control trading policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ely. The second is from... sorry, I do apologise.
If I can ask a supplementary question, then in that case, can the Cabinet member please clarify which properties are affected by the imposed ban and how many vape outlets have been affected?
Okay, no answer. I don't know all of them, but I know for definitely that on premises that are Chelmsford City Council run, such as Chelmsford Market, is clearly stated that vaping products, along with weapons and live animals, are not permitted in the Traders Info Pack. And in fact, after this motion was introduced, there was a trader within the market that was actually given notice to cease trading those particular and selling those particular products. Thank you. Sorry, that's all I know of, but I can find out more if and get back to you on that. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Ely. The second is from Councillor Paul Clark, and I'll ask Councillor Marie Goldman to respond to it.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 20th of March 2024, this council conducted a recorded vote to implement the results of the tender process for the waterside development. This meeting excluded the press and the public, but most of the information is in the minutes published tonight. My question to the leader of the council is, why was this brought to full council with a provision of there being due diligence after the vote? The due diligence should have been completed before it was decided by full council. This would have saved much time and taxpayers' money being wasted by the negligence of the administration and the executive of this council. Is there an apology anywhere on the horizon to the residents of Chelmsford who have seen a lot of their money wasted on this process? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Clark, for the question. Unfortunately, Councillor Clark does make some assumptions in the question which are inaccurate. But first of all, let me start by saying that that Homes England have been involved in the Waterside project, and we are very much reliant as a council on their support. And unfortunately, because Homes England is essentially a government body, we are bound by the guidelines that they've set out, and they set deadlines for when they need information about things. And your Councillor Clark will remember that this was a special council meeting that was convened for because Homes England needed to know needed a decision to be made by the 31st of March, which is why we needed to convene that meeting, which is what we did. However, we did, of course, say that there would be the decision was taken on the proviso of due diligence being done afterwards, and of course that due diligence did bring out some issues that we discovered. So it is absolutely, in an ideal world, yes, of course, all the due diligence would be done before we bring anything to council. Unfortunately, we live in a world where that simply isn't the case. We would like government departments to be much more flexible in their approach to how they hand out funds to local councils and how we can bid for it and how we can get money. But unfortunately, that was the world that we were working under then. Maybe things will change going forwards, and we certainly hope so. But Councillor Clark suggests that the money was wasted. That simply isn't the case, because there was plenty of work that was done as part of the funds that were used for that, which would have had to be done anyway. So that is not money that has been wasted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldman. Councillor Clark.
Thank you for that answer. Unfortunately, we didn't get the apology, of course, but the due diligence included, after the vote, included some legal advice which said that this item was wrong. That's my understanding. I haven't seen any proof of that. I've just seen a document that said that. So my question is, if Homes England have extended the date at which we need to conduct this, which we all thought they would anyway on the night of that vote, why wasn't all this due diligence done before we had the vote? It's a simple question, and it could have been verified by legal advice, but it wasn't. So when it was challenged and legal advice was taken, it's been removed, which is a waste of time and money, not only in us being here, but all the work that had been done by officers of this council prior to that. That can't be redone. That can't be reset. It was wasted. Thank you.
You wish to reply?
Yeah, I'll just say that at the risk of repeating myself, due diligence was done. It was part of the process. And if Councillor Clark had wanted to raise concerns before the meeting and well in advance, so that other additional work, if he was so concerned about it, he could have raised concerns before the meeting. He didn't know about it because that's what happens when you do due diligence. Sometimes things come out afterwards that you didn't know about beforehand. Otherwise, what would be the point of due diligence? So there are things that come out in the wash, and these are one of the things that came out. And as I said before, money was not wasted. This is part of the whole process, and I'm not going to add any more to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we now come on to agenda item 7. Before we start agenda item 7, I'm going to give an apology because I cannot see your name plates. So if anyone wishes to, thank you, Councillor Davison. If anyone wishes to talk, please stand up and I'll try and find out your name. The Chief Executive is going to nudge me. I've asked for a seating plan. The Conservatives are in navy blue, so I can read your names. Unfortunately, the Liberals are in yellow and I can't. So please bear with me. So if you see a nudge from the Chief Executive, that's the Chief telling me your name. Some of you I do know, obviously, but I'm just about to see the names down there. Right. Agenda item number 7 is report from Cabinet. Agenda item 7.1, the proposed changes to the Constitution. Councillor Davison. Oh, yes, it's you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The constitutional changes, we try to keep our constitution up to date. We have, let's say, our monitoring officer has been undertaking a review. initially on behalf of the Governance Committee, which I chaired last year. What we have taken through the process and brought to Council today is a number of proposals to improve the Constitution in relation particularly to panels and working groups. So the report, I'm not going to go into detail on the report. The report basically says that the Civic Centre panel, which was important some years ago but hasn't met, isn't needed in the Constitution, so we propose to remove it. The community funding panel, we should improve the Constitution in relation to that and be clear who the chair is and the accountability, the cabinet accountability. That we should put the constitutional working group, which is the working group that initiated these and has existed for some time but wasn't in the Constitution, we should add that to the Constitution. And there is also a model planning code which we should bring into, we should align, subject to some minor changes to retain current working practice of the Planning Committee that works well. Those are the changes essentially that we're proposing. There is one change I'd draw your attention to following Cabinet meeting when the original proposal for the terms of reference of the Constitutional Working Group, we discussed at Cabinet and we're proposing a small change to that in the hope of avoiding ambiguity. So I will formally move the report. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder, sir?
Seconded.
You didn't nudge. The motion is to approve the amendments to the Constitution. Will those in favour of the recommendations please indicate by raising their hand?
Sorry, Chair, you didn't get an opportunity to ask a question.
Who wants to ask a question of a debate?
I'm not supposed to have already discussed it, have we?
No, we didn't discuss it. So, Councillor Hyland.
That's okay. Yes, Councillor Hyland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report that came from a limited company for the Code of Practice, is it standard for us to use that as a best resource? And can I ask if the Code of Conduct for the Planning Committee has been reviewed by the Local Government Association?
So.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I may need to rely on our excellent monitoring officer to provide the detail to this. My understanding, though, is that this model planning code has been to the Planning Committee in addition to going through the normal process, and that the conclusion was that this was a good proposal and that it was appropriate, subject to those amendments that I mentioned, to retain specific aspects of our practice.
Yeah, it's actually lawyers in local government are the people that have have worked on the model code. It has actually had, the old code has had judicial approval in courts before, and the people that have been working on it with lawyers in local government are recognised as leading experts on governance. So it is recognised as good practice across the local government sector, which is why I felt comfortable in recommending to members that it would be adopted, subject to a couple of tweaks, and also put in some of the rules that were in our old planning code into another part of the Constitution, just so we retained them, really. But no, I'm quite comfortable that the code itself is a solid, good code that the council can rely upon. I think you should ask about the Local Government Association. I don't know if the Local Government Association have commented on it specifically. I don't know that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Any others wish to comment? The motion is to approve the amendments to the Constitution. Will those in favour of the recommendation please indicate by raising their hand again? Thank you. Anyone against? No, it's carried. An abstention? 2 abstentions. to the next one. Is this number 8? 7-2. Right. Agenda item number 8, Treasury Outturn 2023-24. The next item is on the Treasury Outturn for 23-24 that was considered by the Treasury Management and Investment Subcommittee. Councillor Chris Davison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is the outturn report for last year. That's to say, it summarises what happened last year in Treasury Management. It goes to that subcommittee first. I chair that. We had the meeting yesterday, and as the report says, I'm providing a verbal update. In summary, the subcommittee noted the report. I think the key requirement on Treasury Management is that our finance team look after our money. And they do so within the boundaries that Council sets. We set the parameters, the finance team operate within those. And they did a good job last year. That's essentially what the report says. In the past, one specific item that both the subcommittee and Council have discussed, it has been our cash that we've invested in funds. In particular, we withdrew the money from the property fund last year. At least we gave notice last year, and we received the money list this year, to be precise. So that should remove any risk of further discussion on that item, I hope. Anyway, unless there are any questions, I'll formally move the report.
Thank you, sir. Seconded?
Seconded.
Anyone wish to comment? The motion is to approve the recommendation in the report. With those in favour of the recommendations, please indicate by raising their hand. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Item number 9, the Budget Framework 2025-26. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. It's been agreed. Sorry. Agenda item number 9, Budget Framework. The next item is on the Budget Framework for 25-26. Councillor Chris Davison, please.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. So normally at July Council, I'd be proposing a medium-term financial strategy, but this year I'm not doing so. And if anybody would like me to, well, unfortunately, that won't be possible. So I had a discussion with our Section 151 officer, the head of finance, and I asked him about this. He said he wanted to talk to me about it, and therefore I am proposing to change the normal approach for this year at least. So the proposal this year is that we will have a report to Cabinet in October. That will combine the normal July medium-term financial strategy, which by then will be an October one, with the mid-year review of our finances, of the revenue position, the capital position, which would normally come to Cabinet in November. So put those two together into what we're terming an annual financial review. We will then, in terms of the process, we will then review how that goes this year. There will be full input from across the council, and if this works better than the way we've been doing it, then we will propose that we should make that permanent. And that will involve changing the constitution again. So it may be that this time next year we'll be having another constitution discussion. The reasons for making this change are explained in detail in the report, but in summary, basically July is too early to be having this discussion. The information simply isn't available for us to have a good discussion about it. What that leads to is reports with vague proposals that say, well, we'll delegate all this to officers and Cabinet, but it's not much help to anybody for us to do that. That's not proper scrutiny. That's just basically saying, we'll trust somebody else to get on and sort it out. So, to my mind, it would be a lot better to have that debate at a time when we've got more information and we can have a better report. In addition to that, finance as a function has become more complex recently. So I would prefer to use officers' time to manage our finances and to produce useful reports, not distract them with the need to produce unhelpful reports, particularly at a busy time of year for them. So that will be what we will do this year if Council approves this report. But I do want to be clear that what we're asking is that Council accepts that it will receive less information than would normally provided. So the capital outturn reports normally would come to Council in July. Those reports will still exist, members can still see them, but we won't have a specific Council discussion about them. But as the report says, they are of little value because it's too late to be discussing how we're going to pay for the things that we spent money on last year once we've already spent the money. Council should be focusing on setting the parameters before the money has been spent to ensure that officers don't spend money that Council doesn't want to fund. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the annual financial review in October will go to Cabinet. There isn't a convenient Council meeting, so therefore it will simply go to Cabinet. But of course, there can be a call-in. ONS can call it in. And the key oversight is the February budget. That's the point at which we're discussing what next year's budget should be, and around that time we're setting the parameters for the finance team for the next year. So my proposition is that we focus on those big picture questions rather than focusing on things that are lower level. So I hope that what we will do thereby is give Council a better picture, a better ability to scrutinise the finance function and enhance oversight in that way. So on that basis, I move this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Seconded? Seconded. Anyone wish to speak, comment? Councillor Whitehead.
Yes, Councillor Davidson and I have discussed this and I think it's a sensible way to try this for 1 year. It's daft having early information that of no value, producing our own little mini budgets, as it were. So we'll have a November statement instead, shall we? Is that right? But we're not unhappy with the idea.
Okay. Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It all makes a great deal of sense when you read it, as you would expect it to, but one part of it causes me a little bit of concern. On the basis you can't manage it unless you measure it, and I see that the staff in the finance department has been reducing or is reduced. Can you comment on that particular issue, please?
Do you wish to comment before the next question?
I'll listen to all the questions.
Okay. Sir? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. There might not be a meeting in October, but there is one in December by the full council, and the point 1, I think, is the annual financial review that's now been taken away from council. It could have been heard then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to make a comment? No? Sir?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll respond to those 2 points then. The current proposal is we don't think that taking it to full council in December will add any value. It will by then be 2 months out of date. But nevertheless, when we have a review of how this year goes, that's a point that we can look at. If we conclude that that would have added value, we can do that. If we conclude that we ought to be convening an extra council meeting for the purpose, we can do that. We are not constrained in what we can do, but the proposition is we'll try this proposal this year, and then we will make whatever amendments we need to that in response to the comments we get after we've run that process for a year. The second point about the reduction in the finance team, well, I think for the last, for all but 12 months of the period since May 2019, I've been standing here speaking to finance papers, including budgets, and each year we've been finding savings in our budgets. Councillor Knight and others have been very keen that we do run the council as efficiently as possible. Clearly that's something we want to do as well. We have looked for savings where we can safely do so. I don't think that was a change from the previous practice. I think the previous administration was also looking for savings. So over a period, what the report notes is that there has been a significant reduction in the staffing of the finance team. Some of that is accounted for by new accounting systems that enable things to be done on an automated basis rather than through manual input. But nevertheless, that is the state of the council's finances. We don't have excess funds that could enable us to put that 30% back into the finance team, even if it might be desirable to do so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The motion is to approve the recommendations in the report. Will those in favour of the recommendations please indicate by raising their hand? Thank you. Will those against the recommendation please indicate by raising their hand? Thank you. Will those abstaining please indicate by raising their hand? Thank you. The motion to approve the recommendations is agreed. Agenda item 10, notice of motion. The notice of motion under item 10 has been withdrawn and therefore will not be considered. Urgent business. I have not been informed of any urgent items of business. So therefore this concludes this evening's business and I thank you all for your attendance.